Good afternoon. We will start in a minute. If this is okay with the IT team. Yes, we can start in a minute. We can? Very well. So, Is it? The music is very nice, but is it possible to stop it? Thank you so much. So welcome to the session this afternoon. Thank you for attending the session. Is the voice clear enough? Yes? It's good? You can hear me fine? Very well. So we have a 90 minutes session today to discuss the topic of reporting mechanisms, hotlines, to basically, as the name indicates, to report child sexual abuse images. We have different panelists, experts on the topic joining us this afternoon. So I'm going to very briefly introduce each of them so that you can be, you can know a little bit more about their background. We have on my right-hand side Uma, and Uma is the founder and co-director of an NGO that is based in Mumbai, which is called APrIGF. And not long ago, APrIGF entered an agreement with a UK-based organization called Internet Watch Foundation to establish in India the first online portal for child abuse images. So she's going to explain this afternoon how it works and a little bit her experience. Then we have also Cecilia Walling. Cecilia works for Interpol, based in Bangkok, specialized in crimes against children. And she's the team leader of the Crimes Against Children unit that is based in the region. And they are based in Bangkok, but they cover the region, all of Asia. All of Asia, and Southeast, and the Pacific area. So they have a lot to do. Then we have also a remote speaker. I'm not sure he will be able to connect. I'm hoping he will be able to connect. His name is Joseph Fonseca. He's the FBI assistant legal attaché with the US Embassy here based in Bangkok. And he was supposed to attend the panel, but then at the last minute, he had to go to some mission, urgent mission. So he apologized for it. And of course, he promised he would try to connect, but the internet speed at the hotel where he is not the best. So we'll see what happens with him. Then we have Krishda over there. Krishda is the project manager of the Thai hotline. So Krishda also will explain a little bit his experience and how the hotline works. And then we have Akari from Japan, from Yahoo Japan. And also Yahoo Japan created or set up a hotline in Japan, and also we hear about this experience. And finally, we have Maria Grazia, who works for InHope, the Internet Association of Hotlines. She's the program manager responsible for hotline development. And I should say and clarify that this workshop has been co-organized between InHope and the organization I work for, which is called APAC International, a network of NGOs, and the International Secretariat is based here in Thailand. So the way the session is structured is the following. Each panelist is going to make 5-minute remarks, introductory remarks, sorry. And then after that, we're going to move on to another block where I will be asking a set of 4 questions. And the objective is to have the panelists answering the questions and also open the floor and have participants from the audience interested in intervening and making comments, asking questions around the questions that we're going to ask. So it's 10 minutes past 2, so I think we can start with the introductory remarks. We can start with Maria, if it's fine with you. Yes? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Is my voice clear enough? Yes? Thank you for attending this workshop. So I will try briefly to describe what hotlines do. Internet has become the greatest mean for the facilitation of child sexual abuse material dissemination, exchange, and commercial exploitation. The platforms it provides have given an immense opportunity both to private owners of child abuse material who can now freely exchange it using the facilities provided by the World Wide Web and by mobile networks, as well as by criminal organizations that can exploit the market of child sexual abuse using means that were once upon a time completely unimaginable. And coming out of the local exploitation into the great arena of exchange and dissemination and distribution of material across countries in very, very difficult to detect ways. Obviously, this has had a very harsh impact on society at large. First of all, on the very owners of those platforms, who see the platforms being polluted by illegal material of the worst kind. Financial corporations who see their means and their trading tools being used to facilitate the commercial exploitation of child sexual abuse. Governments, law enforcement who have to fight against a crime who is taking immense proportions. And last but not least, the children who have become now a very, very exploitable product beyond the borders of the country where they live and beyond the use of the single individuals who violate them. This is why INOP, as an umbrella organization, started gathered all the hotlines around the world who were fighting the common fight against child sexual abuse material online. A reporting line or hotline is a facility that allows the public, anonymously, to report images or videos or any kind of material portraying a child being abused in order for this material to be taken down the web, for the uploaders eventually to be found and the child to be rescued in collaboration with law enforcement, governments, and child welfare organizations. There are many different types of hotlines, and they have born out of different needs in different regions. We have hotlines which are industry-based, so the very platform owners, ISP and web hosting providers, started having a reporting mechanism by which they could detect this material and take it down. Governments have started channels for reporting from the public in order to detect the material and pass it to the law enforcement. And then NGOs, funded by the public at large or funded by private donors, also started moving from the support to children being abused offline to understanding the trend of the crime, the trend of the market, and supporting children being abused online by receiving reports and escalating them to law enforcement and to the host providers. What INOP does, it provides a complete set of capacity building to any organization who wishes to start a hotline and who wishes to manage and continue a hotline. We provide an entire path for hotline development, all the systems and tools that are required to manage reports and escalate them and exchange them at an international level. We provide organizations with training, and once they cross some gating criteria that allow us to ascertain the safety, security, and quality of the organization, they become part of our umbrella organizations, where they can access statistics, where they can be part of a continuous innovation that drives all of us to be able to deal with the constant challenge and the risks and innovations in the field of criminality and CSAM.
Thank you very much, Maria. Can we move on with Krishna? Yes, thank you.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Krishna Thaprung from Thai Hotline. So Thai Hotline is the service operated by the Internet Foundation for Development of Thailand. We are the civil society organization, and we have the online web-based the www.thaihotline.org that public can report anonymously if they see any child sexual abuse material on the internet, and also any type of cybercrime. And myself and the team who are the hotline analysts, we were trained by the high-tech crime unit of the Royal Thai Police, and we will look at the cases and forward to the police, which right now we work with ThaiCat, Thailand Internet Crimes Against Students, and also work with ISP, Internet Service Provider in Thailand to remove the either images or video clip or website, and also the cybercrime unit if for the cybercrime cases, and also is related with the Ministry of Digital Economy in Thailand as well, in terms of like removing content or notice and take down procedure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then we can have Uma. Do you want to me?
Good afternoon, everyone. I represent the RM India initiative. We are a civil society-led initiative that's based out of Mumbai in India. We work to protect children from sexual offenses in the country, and specifically in Mumbai. Just wanted to give you a background of why we started the India's first hotline to report child sexual abuse imagery. So in 2013, there was a petition in the Supreme Court of India which was seeking a blanket ban on pornography, stating the reason that porn is bad and it sort of corrupts the moral fabric of the country, especially affects its children. So the ban was really looking at asking the court to really intervene on children watching pornography, but also children being used for pornography. And as a response to this, what the government of India did was they in an ad hoc manner banned 857 pornographic websites. Nobody knew how they went about doing it, and thus there was a lot of criticism and a heavy backlash from civil society and media in the country. And that was a time when the country was really grappling with this issue of child sexual abuse material, which is popularly known as child pornography. We set up India's first hotline in partnership with UK-based Internet Watch Foundation. They're one of the leading hotlines in the world. The reason we partnered with them was because we wanted to demonstrate a solution that had already worked somewhere else in the world, and wanted to show the Indian government that it is possible if we work in collaboration with national and international agencies, bringing in a best practice to the country. Also, we were seeking a response mechanism because we were realizing that a lot of cases that we were handling were starting to get an online component in it, which basically meant that either children were groomed using online technology, or a lot of victims were sort of photographed and videos were made while they were performing sexual acts with the perpetrators, and subsequently nobody knew what happened to those images. And we had a case of a 15-year-old boy who was in a situation like this, and while the law enforcement agencies kicked into action with the judicial process, nobody really knew what happened to those images. So thus, from a technical standpoint, and also from a demonstrated a need for demonstration, we launched India's first online reporting hotline. It's hosted on our website, rmindia.org, which is also India's first resource portal on prevention of sexual abuse of children. Currently, the mechanism in its form is that the hotline is available in 2 languages, that's Hindi and English. Any citizen in the country can report child sexual abuse material that's available on the public internet in an anonymous way in 5 simple steps. What happens is the report goes to an analyst who is based in the UK, because under the Indian law, we are not authorized to look at any of these images, and there's absolutely no bandwidth in the country to deal with a hotline like this. What we get is we get metadata on what the reports are. And till March, so we launched last year in September, and till March, we had 426 reports that were made by Indian citizens, of which 33 reports contain category A imagery, which basically means the worst forms of sexual abuse. What has happened is a reaction to the hotline is that the government has taken note of the hotline, and the government thinks that this is probably one of the solutions that we can implement in the country to tackle child sexual abuse material. The Minister of Women and Child Development was present at our launch, and it was then and there that she announced the formation of a national alliance, which is the first alliance in the country to tackle child sexual abuse material. It's a multi-stakeholder alliance. There is also an interministerial committee currently, which is under the Ministry of Information and Electronics under the Government of India. So the momentum has just sort of started in the country, where we have a latest order, which is 31st of April, not 31st of April, April, where the government has asked all the internet service providers in the country to start implementing the IWF blocking list, which is basically a list of URLs that has to be blocked at the gateway level itself. So that is where we are at with the hotline.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Some of the aspects you raised, I think we will discuss them again during the second block, because not everybody might be familiar with the way it works and some terminology. So thank you. Then Akari, can you, yes, you want to make your remarks?
Sure. Hi, I'm Akari from Yahoo Japan Corporation. Okay, yeah, I'm from Yahoo, but here, I would speak as the Safer Internet Association, Akari. What is that? Yeah, so Yahoo is not like in other market in Asia Pacific and maybe in the world. Yahoo Japan is the independent company from the Yahoo Inc. global thing that was recently purchased by Verizon. So Yahoo is still very strong in Japan market, taking up 90% of internet reach to Japanese internet users. And we believe it's our company's social responsibility to make the internet as a safer place in Japan for our future success as well. So we organized the organization called Safer Internet Association. We call it SIA, with collaborating with other IT companies and security companies. And the SIA has mainly two activities. One is providing the digital education to children and the society, and another one is the hotline operation. And SIA is currently running 2 hotlines. One is Internet Hotline Center called IHC, and another one, SafeLine. Why do we have 2? Because the IHC is fully funded by National Police Agency, and because of that, its legal authority is limited to Japan domestic URLs. But however, in some cases, the illegal contents are sometimes hosted out of Japan. So we, in that case, our another hotline, SafeLine, supplementary take care of those illegal content abroad. So, and also the IHC focus on illegal content that is obviously violating some against law, but SafeLine also take care of harmful or inappropriate content, even though it's not clearly obviously violating some law, but still it's pretty inappropriate. That's actually depend on the case, but we check the case and handle that too. So how do we operate the hotline? So we have the web form that is open to the public. So whenever citizen finds something something illegal like child pornography or revenge porn or illegal drug shops and so on, they can report it to us from the web form by just reading the URL. No need to put your personal information. It's optional, and if they wish, they can put it, but in basic manner, we don't require their personal information. And once we receive the report, we analyze the IP address and other information, and if it's hosted in Japan, the information will be reported to National Police Agency, and we ask for the removal to the hosting providers and site owners. Actually, in many cases, they immediately, they take action to our request. And in case they're hosted outside of Japan, the one thing is since we are the member, SIA is the member of INHOP, like the Maria introduced, so we collaborate with the other INHOP member countries if they're the members to send a request, and if it's hosted in the country where there is no INHOP member, we send the direct removal request to the site owners. And yeah, in fiscal year 2016, SIA successfully deleted 97% of illegal content requested for removal. So actually, both inside and outside of Japan, more than 90% can be deleted. So actually, the deleting ratio is pretty high. So I think if only we get information, we can delete them. But our challenge is that our hotline service should be more broadly well known and recognized, especially among those victims, because at this moment we are not doing the proactive patrolling yet. So I think we still have some certain area we should step forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Again, we will come back to some of the points you made during the questions. Can we have Cecilia? Yes, yes, please.
I'm just waiting for the presentation to show.
Oh. Can we have the PPT on, please? It's coming. It's on.
So Interpol works every day to make internet a safer world, a safer place for everyone, including the children. And prevention is one of the most important things for us to deal with. So if we have a member in a country that is maybe not want to take direct contact with law enforcement, if he sees an image online that he doesn't feel comfortable with, he can report it to a hotline, and fast action can be taken because the hotline reports it to the law enforcement. Access blocking is one of the most important things because we can block the images to be viewed online. But what is more important is that we actually can rescue the children depicted in the images. So what Interpol does is, let's say we have house searches around the world. In Australia, they find an image depicting a child, but they don't know who it is. They find images in Canada. They find images in Argentina or in Thailand, but no one knows who this child is. But if every image is gathered in one database, and we have a database like that at Interpol, which is called the International Child Sexual Exploitation Database. All images collected from law enforcement or from INHOPs or from hotlines are gathered in this database, which means every image that depicts the same child can be grouped together, and it's easier to identify the child depicted. So it's like a piece of puzzle. One image can contain a sound file. Another can contain another detail, a visible clue in the images. And that is how we work. Because we want to save the children that are depicted online in what we call child abuse material. which actually is evidence of ongoing rapes against children. So in the database, we look at clues like envelopes, we look at keys, we listen to sound files, and so on. And whenever a child has been identified or a country where the child is from, we can refer this to this country and the child can be rescued. And from what case? It was an In Hope member that reported to Interpol, and this video, it was a video, we could hear a child speak in English. We could also hear her say that in Florida it's 10 to 3. And that is a clue, because here in Florida means that this child is in Florida. Other images were found in the database related to this image, so there were more videos and images depicting the same child. And finally, this child could be identified and rescued. She was born in Florida, and she was abused by her father. Another case is just what we can see down here is a text. It's Japanese. This case was referred to Japan, so this is what we look at, and this is what is important for law enforcement and Interpol to work with. So remember that every picture you see online can contain a clue that we need to know to rescue this child. So don't click away when you see something uncomfortable online. Please refer it to a hotline so this child can be rescued. I think that
would be it. Thank you very much. So I would take advantage of the fact that you mentioned the clues and victim identification related issues to advertise the fact that Europol, the European Agency for Police, shared with the public, actually recently, a few weeks ago, some pictures that had been sanitized in order to, have maybe someone from the public identify some clues on the pictures. If you click on the Europol website, you can, and because we don't know whether some of those pictures, they might have been taken in an Asian country. So it would be good if, they had the opportunity to review the pictures and somehow, if you want to add something?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So within Interpol's expert group of experts working with victim identification, we are always in contact with local experts around the world, because we are not experts in brands in a country we don't come from. We need your help to rescue these children.
Thank you very much. That is a very good point. We're going to move on to the next block with specific questions, and we will raise those issues again. So the first one is about, and you just heard about it, why is it important to have a reporting mechanism, collaborate with law enforcement, and collaborate with ISPs? And I think you can sort of guess why, because some of the speakers already mentioned it, but could you please sort of go deeper and explain, because a standalone mechanism, a reporting mechanism, standalone won't work, because necessarily you now understood that once the platform receives the picture, there is a whole process. So maybe, Uma, your organization is working a certain way, and the Thai hotline is working another way. So I don't know if you want to start explaining why, from your point of view, it's very important to have a good collaboration with ISPs and law enforcement. And if this is happening, because sometimes we know it's not happening.
Yeah. Just for the benefit of the audience, a moment sort of you come across an image of a child, who's sexually abused. There are a lot of elements in it. One is that it's a crime that has happened. Of course, it is out in the public internet, thus it's available in the public internet. So the ISP sort of come into play. Because it's a child, there is an angle of not just the law enforcement, but also in terms of protection and looking at welfare of this child and what happens. Thus, from an Indian context, the Ministry of Women and Child Development, which is supposed to sort of look at welfare of these children, comes into play. and then there is a civil society at large. So, I mean, there are these 4-5 different stakeholders that are key to this dialogue. Now, they have to collaborate, that is understood, but there has been a lot of challenge in terms of who takes responsibility for this collaboration. I think that is key, because these are separate sort of units that sometimes operate in isolation. Like I said, the hotline is hosted by somebody, it's monitored by some department, you know, the orders for implementation is given by a completely different department. The law enforcement operates in isolation. So who takes responsibility for the mechanism to ensure that the collaboration happens is going to be key. And most of the times we also realize that in countries like ours, the law enforcement are completely incapacitated. And there's a lot of social stigma and taboo to go to the law enforcement to begin with. So that piece is completely, you know, missing. And the other piece, which I'm very, very happy that, you know, Cecilia brought about, is the whole thing about victim rehabilitation. And I just want to flag it off, because that is where we as civil society come into the picture, where what kind of collaboration needs to happen to really ensure that these children do not fall prey to these crimes over and over again. And, you know, while we're talking about all these different stakeholders, one thing I want to flag off, probably we can take it during the discussion, is how do we bring the citizens in the debate? Because sometimes reporting to a hotline can seem like a one-way process. I reported, and then what happened to the report is something that's not very clear. Are these perpetrators prosecuted? If yes, how many? Are these victims rescued? If yes, how many? I think for each country, it's important to know what is happening to that report. So I think these are sort of the different layers of collaboration. Yeah.
In case of Thailand, actually, the mechanism of reporting procedures still need the collaboration better from like ISP and the police, because right now, like when the hotline receive report, we refer to the police, and also if the content will be blocked or removed by the Ministry of Digital Economy and Social Security in Thailand, which they will ask for the court order and then send that letter to the ISP to take down the content, which sometimes takes a long process and takes quite a long time. So I think it would be better if the mechanism is getting faster, especially for the child sexual abuse material on the internet, because those content should not be like, you know, available for anyone to be, you know, access to it easily, you know. So, but I think for the global point of view, I think the mechanism between like the hotline working with the In Hope is a good thing, because like when Thai Hotline receive the report about child sexual abuse material, if it's hosted in Thailand, then we can forward to our local police. But if it's hosted outside the country, then we can report to the In Hope database, which of course the content will also goes to the Interpol child you know, database as well. So I think it's very good opportunity that we have support from In Hope as well.
Krista, I would like to elaborate a little bit more on what you just said. You've been working on this for many years now, some years. Have you seen a positive evolution in terms of, you remember when you started how the relationship was with ISPs and maybe the police because of lack of awareness, etc., and where you are now? Do you think there has been a huge improvements?
I would say that before, in terms of collaboration, I think the ISP still they see that they have awareness in terms of like the priority of the child sexual abuse material online should be prioritized in terms of like notice and take down, but also it is still difficult to build like mechanism between each organization because the ISP, they're also a private company, so they think that they need to wait for the court order in terms of like removing the contents. They don't want to remove by themselves because they can get into the trouble or lose customers, something like that. So, but I think to be raising awareness in terms of this specific issue will help a lot. Yeah, but still we need to develop a better procedure and make it faster
Improve.
in terms of, yeah.
Thank you. I think Carrie wants to say something, and then Maria.
So speaking of the relationship with police, as I mentioned, our hotline, internet hotline center is fully funded by the National Police. So we of course have the strong collaboration with police agency, and we exchange the information. And also because SIA was funded by the private companies, including Yahoo and other security companies, that would contribute more effectively to ensure the resource, like the money and people, like those assets, because in many cases, it would be sometimes hard to raise the fund, but we have it's not the supporter, but yeah, we have the members company and supporting company, so that will make it more sustainable to keep on running the hotline activities. And yes, and yeah.
Thank you. Maria?
Yes, I would like to, I think everybody understood by now that collaboration is at the center of the effectiveness of any hotline mechanism. If you want to have an impact, you must be in collaboration with the stakeholders within the country and also at an international level. Hotlines which are members of INOP have to guarantee that they have established in the country where they operate collaboration with 4 important parties. The first one are the internet providers. They need to have a collaboration agreement with the internet providers at the national level that guarantee that content being escalated or flagged by the hotline will be taken down. Then they need to have a collaboration, stated in writing, with the government. The government needs to entitle the hotline as a reporting mechanism, as a processor of the reports, and we will see that this authority can be given at different levels, and recognize their role also as a knowledge contributor in the policy-making process. Then they need to have an agreement with the local law enforcement agency, the local police. The local police needs to commit to receiving the cases which are being reported by a hotline and work on them as criminal cases. Last but not least, with a child welfare institution in the country, which can lead to an understanding and a follow-up of the offline support to the victim, as well as contribute to the knowledge that the hotline has in dealing with emerging cases. This mechanism, which operates at the country level, is then escalated in the international exchange. Every time a hotline member of INOP exchange a report with another hotline, because the content is being hosted in another country, that hotline knows that it will be handled through the same procedures and the same level of in-country support. Ultimately, all the information which is generated by hotlines member of INOP is shared with Interpol, with global policymakers, with global industry representatives, so as to have a scalable process and a scalable knowledge that invest at all levels stakeholders. When in country we see obstacles and the hotline cannot achieve the level of collaboration desired and needed, INOP comes in with its stakeholders in order to support that process. Several times we have met the country national police to explain why it is important that they collaborate with hotlines. We have collaborated with Interpol that can join the national police of new hotline countries to make sure they inform the agency about the reasons why they need to collaborate with hotlines and how a hotline can improve the effectiveness of law enforcement as well.
Yes, those points are very interesting, and it might sound simple, the criteria that Maria highlighted, but in some countries it's actually not that easy, in the sense that we are aware that in some countries there are some tensions with either between civil society and the police. There is some, the public doesn't really trust the police for many different reasons. There is no tradition of collaboration between different sectors. Government is not used to collaborating with private sector or civil society. So many different cultural, political, social issues that can interact and interfere with this particular process. So I would like to ask if someone in the audience has a particular comment or want to ask a question about these aspects at this point. No? About, the experience in the region, and if you have something you want to add to the points that we made so far. Or online, we have no questions? Remote participants, we don't? At the moment, very well. So another aspect that, yes, sorry? I have to wear my glasses, sorry. Please, come to the mic.
I'm Ramanjit Singh Chima. I head the policy team at Access now. I also sit on the board of trustees of the Internet Freedom Foundation. My question was, in terms of the helpline cooperation work you've mentioned, I was curious, is there much collaboration with ICE and NCMEC in the region? I'm just curious because I know that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, working through ICE and the US FBI contacts earlier, they have a regional office, at least it used to be based out of Sri Lanka, so I'm just curious how that works with some of your networks. And secondly, I'm just curious again on the national experiences of national contact points, again in the region, because of my limited experiences that there aren't too many national contact points, and particularly in South Asia that can be a problem. Some countries have them, most don't. So I'm just curious on that experience point. I have other comments which I'll hold off, but these are two questions just on process.
In regard to the first question, which is the collaboration with NCMEC, NCMEC is a member of INOP. So that means that every single URL which is processed by NCMEC is also inserted in the common system used by all the hotlines of INOP and feeds data to the list of CSAM material and actions the in-country operations with the local stakeholders. So a French hotline might receive a list of URLs from NCMEC. They will action them in-country, making sure it is escalated to the local web hosting provider, to the local registrar, and to the local police. And providing feedback back to NCMEC through the system on which actions have been taken. Regarding the second question, which is the regional contacts, INOP started as a Eurocentric organization. Most of our hotlines are still residing in the European Union, and they operate within the European Union regulations, policies, and agreements. Although, in the past years, the biggest effort of INOP has been that of developing the same network and the same strategies at a regional level in Latin America and in Asia Pacific. Some examples of success are the hotlines which are represented today here, like Japan and Thailand, but we also have situations where the local environment is still not robust or mature enough to create the policies that will allow an hotline to be efficient, to be effective. So we have cases like India, which is supported by the Internet Watch Foundation itself, a member of INOP, in order to at least raise to the public awareness the issue of child online sexual abuse material. The way we go about establishing regional contacts normally is driven through regional expertise. There are many NGOs which are already operating in these regions for many years who advise INOP regarding countries where there is an emerging issue of CSAM, there is an emerging issue of hosting, or there is an emerging issue of, or a possibility, an opportunity for collaboration. Every country which has a hotline makes the entire network stronger. INOP enters these countries, tries to collaborate with the contacts which have been advised, and guides them through a process that can take from 1 year up to 5 years, the entire process of developing outline, developing relationship with the local stakeholders, and entering this greater network.
And I just want to add that NECMEC is one of the, what can you say, they are connected to the ICSID database. So they are one of our experts working actively against crimes against children or child sexual exploitation.
Maybe before providing more information, we could clarify that for those of you not familiar with the acronyms, that the ICSID database is the database of images of Interpol. Yes.
It's an international child sexual exploitation database. 50 countries plus Europol are connected at this point.
And NICMEC is an organization based in the US. It's the reporting mechanism for national level in the US. And as a matter of fact, our speaker from the FBI, the US Embassy, I don't think he's connected remotely, he's not. I'm not seeing him. So he was kind enough to provide some some answers in written form to the question that we are discussing here. And one of the things he was saying, and he shared the answers with me, so I will read on his behalf. He was emphasizing, he would like to emphasize the fact that this collaboration is very important from FBI perspective. And of course, he's saying that there are 60 countries connected through a listserv, and that for them it's very important to have this exchange of information and discuss cases. And he said that only in Thailand, for this year, NICMEC has been sending 50,000 referrals to the Thai authority, the Thai police. 50,000 referrals to the Thai police. So I don't know. Do you consider that it's a lot, or it's very little, or it's many referrals? It's many, yeah, it's quite a lot. So there is collaboration through different channels, and somehow hotlines are involved in the process. Do you want to, do we have another question from the audience, or we can move on? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Luis. I'm a representative for the Human Rights Center from Malaysia. Okay, firstly, thank you to the panelists for enlightening me on this hotline issue, because before that, I do not know about this facility. I guess it is because Malaysia only passed the Sexual Offences Against Children Act this year, 2017, to legislate against child pornography and child grooming. So I see that there may be a need to set up this hotline in Malaysia. We do have hotlines to report on abuse of usage of the internet, but not specifically on child pornography. So my question to the panelists is, what would be the best approach to setting up this hotline through your experience? Like, for example, difficulties that you faced when you first starting this hotline. Should we lobby with the police to set up a unit to do it? Should we set up our own NGO to do it? Should we get InHope to come in to help us set up? Or what's your opinion? Thank you.
All of it.
Definitely.
Sure.
INOP has two sides to it. It has an association and it has a foundation. The foundation goal is to help in any possible way with system, tools, processes, lobbying, networking, and money, finances, organizations that want to start up a hotline. So it's a good it's a good place to start, at least to understand what needs to be in place in order to have a hotline, trying to establish the basic steps, a timeline, a plan, and the requirements, and of course, having an organization, because we collaborate with organizations. They can be private organizations, NGOs, government-funded organizations that want to start a hotline.
Uma? Yes, please.
I would say that you probably need to do some groundwork in terms of understanding what existing situation is in Malaysia. That would mean that you might have to meet the key players in the ISP associations, meet some sort of key officials in law enforcement, understand where the civil society stands, also study the existing models of hotlines that we just presented to you, and perhaps have sort of widespread discussions with civil society groups to understand how you are best sort of in a position to look at this approach. Because coming from an Indian experience, I think that was a first step that we did, was really get our research together and understand what were the models before we said that we could bring in, one model to the country. So, yeah.
Yeah, our organization is also relatively new, so we always talk to the other groups that has more experience. So in hope, of course, and the companies who has motivation and the issue who are aware of those issues, and also we talk to the civil society the UNICEF and the APAC and Stop Japan, those NGOs, because they're well known, and also they have the better understanding of the actual situation. So I think a key point is to talk to the multi-stakeholder that has already an experience and gather the people and create the circle of trust to establish the hotline.
Yes.
Just add one more point. Also, I think it would be interesting for you to look at the law and see how robust it is in terms of setting up your own hotline. So, for example, in India, currently the way the law is that an Indian agency cannot be looking at child sexual abuse material because it's illegal under the law. And thus we had to partner with somebody who can look at the images and eventually take it down. So I think it's also good for you to see what is the legal framework that's available in the country for you to get started.
Very good advice, and it certainly sounds like Malaysia right now as a country is mature enough and as a stage where it's the right moment, and I think you said it, and you're right, that's also my opinion, hearing a little bit about what's going on there. It's the right moment to start thinking about these mechanisms. And the point that you raise is very interesting, because legal framework definitely, will condition a lot it will impact on the kind of structure you can set up. Looking at the kind of model you want to implement, and this is the next question we had on the list is, and it was raised in the introductory remarks, there are many ways of setting up those hotlines. So is it more convenient for Malaysia or any other country in the region to have an NGO-led mechanism, to have private sector-led mechanism? Is one better than the other? I have my own opinion, but I would like to ask the panelists to, of course, to express their opinion on this, if they want to, of course. Is one system better than the other, or you think it really depends on the needs of the country and the local authorities and instances to get together, the stakeholders, and decide over the type of model that they want?
I think I would go with the latter option, which is basically there has to be a widespread consultation within the country to understand what is the best model that can be evolved for the country. It's going to be very difficult for us to say that an industry-led model which has worked probably in the UK is going to work in India, where we know that the government is extremely critical, and there has been issues, and there is a lack of trust on both sides of the table. So I think it's important for us to evolve the best model for each country and in each cultural context. I wouldn't say we can have one model. I don't know what the other panelists feel in terms of the best model.
From our perspective, the most important thing is whatever kind of construction it is, the images needs to go finally to law enforcement for victim identification purposes.
Yeah, I agree on that point. Yeah, we are like the private sector led organization, but also, of course, we need to collaborate with the NGO and civil society too. And most importantly, we need the strong collaboration and communication with the law enforcement. By that, like we have the actual power to work and save the victims, and also having the collaboration with the law enforcement will enhance our trust, and that will contribute more to the more effective removal to the ISP and site owners, because in a way they're a bit afraid of getting arrested or being criminal. So having the law enforcement collaboration is the key. Well, thank you.
I would like to, first of all, make a note regarding what has been a big obstacle to law enforcement and to ISPs until today, the number of reports. So any ISP has a reporting page where the public can report abuse material. Social networks have it, host providers have it, but the point of view of what any member of the public might perceive as abusive content varies a lot. So ISPs receive tons of reports for very minor issues that are related to the individual perception of immorality, mixed together with crimes and evidence of crime, without any way to filter through those, and having to really run an entire operation in order to just filter through what is a perceived abuse and what is an effective, actual abuse. The same goes for the police. Very often the police receives this first case, so a lot of cases in a mixed bag with the greatest degree of gravity, and known evidence. So the public might encounter photographs, videos, which have already been in circulation for 10 years, are already known to the police, the case has already been investigated, possibly closed, and it's presented again. And you might have, in the same minute, you might receive 200 reports of known evidence and 200 reports of things and one single report of something which is new evidence, a crime which is being perpetrated right now and has not been persecuted. So having a hotline that can assess cases is obviously a great facilitation to both the industry and the police, because somebody else is going to filter new evidence, comparing it to the existing databases. Somebody else is going to filter actual abuse from perceived abuse. Now, we do have the situation of countries where assessment is not allowed, but even then, having a center responsible for the reporting mechanism, the categorization, and the forwarding of the cases is already shedding some work off the operations that law enforcement and ISPs can put at disposal of society and of their own platforms. Now, a few examples. We talked about Japan. Japan, we have a private organization, Yahoo, which is collaborating with Safe Society.
Yes, Safe Ranges,
which is an NGO, and they work on a tender by the national police. So the national police is financing the hotline that operates as an NGO through a tender. We have other mechanisms. Let's talk about Czech Republic. In this case, we have an alliance of all the industry players, mainly registrars and web hosting providers, who decided to put a little amount aside, the amount of the income of domain registration, and to put it in an organization that would run the hotline. And they run the hotline within the offices and within the attender for crime intelligence with the national police. So we see that, and then we have, of course, child welfare organizations that run an NGO for child protection, and within this NGO they have an helpline and they have a hotline. But in any case, it works when it's not isolated. When we see that there has been a combination of efforts, there has been a commitment by more parties to pursue common goals. So not an individual party pursuing specific individual objectives, but a mix, as we see here, the police and the private industry, an NGO and a government tender, etc.
It certainly sounds like a good marketing argument for those of you who want to approach the local authorities and say, either the ISPs or the police say, hey, you know, we can be part of the system and help alleviate the workload, and we just need to work out a few details and start collaborating. So I think it's, and I'm thinking also of a comment that Joseph, who is our remote speaker, made about the fact that the NICMEC, the hotline in the US, has received, according to him, a lot of bad press because they are set up, legally speaking, as a not-for-profit, as an NGO, but they receive a lot of money from the US government. So he was saying, you know, there has been media questioning the fact that they are a not-for-profit on paper, you know, but yet they receive US government funding substantial amounts. So, and this is, I think, an example of the kind of debate or discussions that could easily take place in any country that we need to pay attention to when we think of you know, potentially of a new mechanism that we want to set up in a new country, specifically in this region. Yes? Do we have any another question from the audience or from the remote participants? No question? Very well. We can then move on to another question that is related to security and privacy issues, because we were also interested in discussing a little bit. We're talking here about mechanisms that institutions, organizations that are receiving very sensitive materials, illegal content, some of it, and then it will be transferred onto the police in a, you know, if things work out well. So we're talking about citizens, internet users reporting to a mechanism that is online, to an online platform. In some cases, the report is anonymous. In other cases, it's, there is a feature that allows for the person to provide personal information if they want to. So we were interested a little bit in discussing your opinions around those issues, because those issues can actually prevent some people from wanting to report or discuss these due to the sensitivity of the material. So I don't know if you want to discuss this. Yes.
Yeah, in Japan case, I mentioned a bit in my presentation, but like basically we don't require the personal data of reporter or the target. We just ask for the URL, then we can check the material over there, and our analyst will judge if like that should be handled as the illegal or just the harmful content. So basically, we try not to correct the personal data, because like it's very like sensitive, especially these days for the privacy. And also like the how to secure the information is like we use the confidential closed server when we exchange the information with the police, and only the authorized operator and police agent can access to it.
Thank you. Krishna, do you want to comment a little bit about the type of protocol, security protocol you implement to make sure that
Okay.
there's no misuse or abuse?
Hello. Okay. For the Thai hotline, actually we have the report service. We of course, it needs to be anonymous for the reporters because they feel more comfortable to report to the Thai hotline. And of course, the point of that have the Thai hotline is have the hotline itself is that the people who maybe have seen the like child sexual abuse material don't want to go to like the police or don't want to report to the government or the police, so they prefer to report to the hotline, and that's why it's important to have the form anonymously. But also in the Thai hotline form, we have the option if the reporter want to have their information, just in case that like sometimes is they need some help or they need they want to check about what is the status of the report that they submit or something like that. So, but we not sharing those information to anyone. And also in terms of the web service as well, we have installed the HTTPS, which is the more securities in terms of like protecting the database, and also the we have the different landing page, which means that for the hotline analysts, when they want to log in to check the cases, they will have to key different URL, which is not be public, and also the database server is different one from the landing page. So.
Okay. Do you want to add something? In your case, Huma, since you have a slightly different type of mechanism, you receive the report, then send it on to an external partner, so agency. So what kind of mechanism, without, of course, sharing confidential information, but what kind of mechanism did you establish to, you know, secure the system?
From an IWF point of view, the partners who are in the UK, any person can anonymously report. Once you report it, if you choose to give your information, the data is erased every 3 months based on the data protection laws in the UK, etc. So in India, we do not get access to any information in terms of who reported or who were these people who were going online and making these reports, etc. What we do know is the number of reports that are made, what was the nature of the report, how many reports were actioned, etc. But one point I would like to flag off here is that privacy is a looming question that is not answered in India because the anonymity of the user could be compromised is the fear that one has. And also there is something called as reporting in good faith under the law. And we realize that there has to be a nuanced position as to what is the good faith, you know, what do we really mean by when we say that the person is reported in good faith. We also have a law which mandates every citizen to report any form of suspected or actual child sexual abuse, imagery or otherwise. Now that is in direct contradiction with anonymity of the reporter, which basically means the law says that you will have to report to the law enforcement and you will have to go to the police. So, I mean, these are sort of the issues that we are facing at the national level, because we've also had cases where, you know, in a case of a 7-year-old girl who was raped, the Central Bureau of Investigation actually put in a petition to the court asking the court to issue an order so that the biometric details of everybody who lived in the community can be released so that they can track down who is the perpetrator. And the court did pass an order like that, and subsequently the order was pulled back. So there is an ongoing debate in the country about you know, anonymity and privacy. So one has to look at this very carefully once the hotline is established for India.
Have you had the opportunity to discuss some of those issues with the media? I mean, are they contacting you to sort of try to discuss this?
Not at the moment. I think where we are at is we are still at a phase where, you know, the government thinks that the government has done its bit by passing an order, and then it has to be implemented. Now we really have to see what happens when this implementation happens. That's the IWF list. but also an ongoing discussion is going on about what is this mechanism that's going to be in India.
Yes.
And I don't think we are still there in terms of having a concrete answer to that. Once we have sort of some kind of consensus among the government and the private sectors, I think we will be in a better position to start then looking at the nuances of data privacy, who is looking at the data, who reports, whom to report, etc. But we are in a very sort of naive stage at the moment.
But that is very interesting because you just wonder, it's the chicken or the egg situation.
Yes.
So all of those questions are, it's a good moment in the sense that, you know, there's no specific answer to all of the questions, which is okay, but they're starting, you know, in India, the government is starting, you know, thinking, okay, what can we do about this? Then the ISPs, you know, coming together with the NGO. So I think it's an opportunity. I mean, the fact that the mechanism has been created triggered all of this.
Yes.
And then along the way, maybe, you know, short term, medium term, some of, you know, those questions, yeah, we will have some answers, or maybe the law would be clearer in that sense. But this is taking me back to something we mentioned earlier about the awareness and knowing that those platforms exist in the country where they are. And this is an important aspect. I think it's one of the questions that was raised. I heard of a case in a neighboring country where they created recently one of those platforms, and basically they don't receive much reports because no one, the wider public, they don't know they exist. And they even don't know how to report. So before establishing this type of mechanism, you also have to think about how do you disseminate the news that it's around, how do you advertise it's around and what it is for and how it works, so that, you know, gradually there is some level of awareness in the country and people start clicking and sending when they find. Because the fact that they don't receive report, it doesn't mean that nothing is happening. It means that maybe the wider public doesn't know there is a place where they can report. You want to comment on this?
Yes, I think that definitely the organization which is running the hotline has to also think about how they're going to advocate and making the hotline tool known to the greater public. The government can definitely assist in this by launching national campaigns of information. But at the same time, I would like to say that the industry is helping us in this. Earlier on today, we had a workshop where a representative of Google provided their example. Every time a search word is inputted in a searching engine that refers to sexual imagery that regarding an underage person, the search results are not being displayed. What is being displayed instead are the contacts of a hotline, the criminal law regarding the issue of using child sexual abuse material, producing it or disseminating it. And so the viewer, or who would like to become a viewer, is immediately informed of the legislation surrounding what is happening. We talked earlier on about the fact that in some countries it is a crime not to report a crime which is being witnessed. That applies also to child sexual abuse material online. If I see it and if I don't report it, in many countries I'm committing a crime. Although the country has made a specific commitment with the hotline to guarantee the anonymity of the reporting mechanism. Why? Because if the reporting mechanism is not anonymous, there is simply no way we're going to get those cases reported. So having a pop-up messaging appearing every time you watch or you come close to watching child sexual abuse material, reminding you that now you have to report it. But at the same time, having a facility guaranteed by the government and the authorities and the police to do so anonymously guarantees that the report is coming to the hotline. Last but not least, it's not the role of the hotline to enforce country legislation. We should always abide by the rules of a country. The hotline is a mechanism that facilitates the reporting and has to do so guaranteeing the total privacy of the mechanism if that is allowed by the, again, by the agreements with the country laws. This is done by securing our systems, ensuring we apply data protection, ensuring we secure the processes we execute. Information cannot be spread in any way. We only hire people who have been screen checked, security checked, to make sure there is no level of leak and no level of infiltration, and we protect the crime evidence we are collecting, the victims, and also the reporting public. It is then the role of the law, and then only of the law, to act in the prosecution process according to the laws of a country, which need to be respected in any case.
Thank you, Maria.
I-
And then we have Edmund queuing.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, two tips that SIA is doing to make our hotline well known in public. One is because we have the search engine on Yahoo. Every time the internet users type certain keywords like child pornography or revenge porn, we show the icon and hotline information for the easier report for the general internet users. Also, we try to keep the relationship with media because when some cases happens, like the murder based on the revenge porn or something serious happens, the media will kind of explode to have the big discussion and lots of publicity and things. So we keep the relationship with media, and whenever some serious cases occurs, we get invited to give the our idea or opinion, sometimes in the morning show or a news show, and that is a good publicity as well to be well known in the public and to contribute more to fight against CSAM and those illegal things.
Thank you very much. Edmund, please, you want to introduce yourself and ask the question?
Sure. Edmund Chung here. I think the question about privacy and security, especially for those who are reporting, is very important. And I'm good. I'm excited to hear about Thailand, India, and others. David and I, we've been working on this hotline and helpline in Hong Kong for some time. Recently, we come across one particular interesting issue, and I wonder if you guys have already looked at it and thought about it. Not only after somebody submits a report, one of the interesting things is when you're online and when you're filling out the form, as you fill out the form, if the reporter does not click submit, the question is, do you keep the data or do you discard the data? Right? Of course, there is one side of us that says, hey, let's keep the data. Maybe there's some reason we might want to use that information. On the other side, but that is a problem, right? Maybe the person doesn't really want to submit at all, and you need to make sure that that data is not collected. And if we do not collect that data, especially, I mean, regardless of whether we collect it or not, there's also an aspect whether you make sure that you refresh the screen quick enough, because maybe the person is at a public place and trying to put in the report, he or she leaves the computer for whatever reason, and the next one coming in may be viewing that particular data. That creates another type of issue, whether you clean up the cache on the browser as well. So those are some of the issues that we're kind of grappling with, and thinking it's kind of not sure in some sense, and also how do you deal with it? Especially there are cases, as mentioned there, the person reporting may even be in distress, right? I mean, he or she may be putting it in and have to run away. In those cases, how to deal with it, and whether you've thought through that, and what are some of the recommendations?
Very interesting question. Thank you very much. I know Akari is a data privacy and data retention specialist. So do you want to say something about that, or?
Yeah,
Because it's about data retention, one part of the answer.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so like we basically don't correct the data unless like it's actually submitted and clicked. Yeah, because and to be honest, like among the data, like there are lots of reports that doesn't make sense, or like doesn't, or like some reports of the content that has already removed. That's fine. That's taken care of. That's taken down. So, but like yeah, you're right. You made the right point. Yeah, I think like reporters are already stressed and afraid of like providing some information, because like that will be a bit stressful if like hey, where do you find it, or how do you find it? Like in some cases like it's stressful, and people need courage to make the reports. So like we are trying to minimize the courage, like power to make the reports. So by like not forcing them to provide their information. And in some cases, however, like the reporter wish to provide their information to sometimes get feedback or like some reply. So in case the reporter proactively provide us with their own information, we delete it periodically, like I think like 3 months after the case closes or something.
3 months.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone wants to add?
I think it's very interesting point. For Thai Hotline, actually, our system require reporter to click submit before the report going to the system. So basically, we never have that issue. So, but I think as we receive a comment from InHope as well in terms of like not to have, just a little bit explanation for the person who report, including also if the sentence about if they're feeling stressed or if they accidentally seeing, the child sexual abuse material, like not intentional. What is the organization in your country that do like counseling? So you can provide the number for them to like maybe call for, counseling if they feel stressed or something like that.
I just wanted to add that the work of the hotline is not the work of investigating a case.
Yes.
We provide a reporting mechanism. We don't collect the data to understand where is the viewer or the perpetrator. It's not our job.
Yes. So this is taking me to another point, and we have 5 minutes left. So I just want to very quickly raise a point that Maria very kindly reminded me we should discuss, is that we're talking about filing reports, and we're thinking about adults coming across, child abuse images, but also let's think of children who are themselves victims of cases of sextortion, in cases of, self-produced images in a context of a consensual relationship with a, boyfriend, girlfriend, and then the thing sort of gets out of control, and then the material, which was supposed to be private in the first, when they were produced, they are shared, and it might as well be that some of those, the person portrayed on the image or a friend of this person wants to report the material to those mechanisms. It could easily happen. I mean, we don't really know because most of those reports are made anonymously, but maybe Maria wants to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Well, what we also know is that there are criminal organizations that work constantly on online gaming platforms to approach children, of course, approaching them as children, start chatting with them, start exchanging views with them, come to an intimate online relationship, obtain material, and then practice extortion towards those children, so requesting the children to pay if they don't want the material to be distributed, or even worse, asking the children to meet up and give more. Otherwise, the material will be distributed. So we have the case of sextortion and the case of grooming, pedophiles approaching children over the web or over gaming platforms, social networks. So even in those cases, providing information in the country about the channels where children can report these situations is very important. It can be a helpline, it can be a hotline, but the issue is coming closer and closer to us. So we have to make sure it is tackled also from an information point of view as much at large as possible.
Cecilia, please.
And from a law enforcement perspective, we know that children does not report to the police. But
They don't, yeah. So you think that this type of mechanism is very useful? I mean, can
it is very
better,
useful for the law enforcement and for the victims, of course, to have alternatives to report channels.
Very well. So unless you want to add, do you want to add something on this topic? No? We have 3 minutes left, so 2 minutes. Okay, on my computer it's 3, but it's okay. So what I would like to do is to wrap up, and as a mean of concluding the session, is to ask you about the future of hotlines and how do you see those type of platforms evolving? Personally, I'm very, very nervous about the whole Internet of Things, this evolution towards having more and more devices connected and enabling children to be geolocalized all the time and et cetera. So how do you see the reporting mechanism in the future evolving? Also, there is an issue around, do we want to continue creating platforms at a national level in very big countries? Do we want some of them to be established at state level? I don't know if you want to comment on this to wrap up.
Yes, actually, for the Thai hotline, we looking the future. I think we look up to the in-home good practice a lot because they have a very varieties of the different type of the hotline in different countries. So they have a good practice there, and we try to create a good mechanism and try to, of course, make the procedure of notice and take down on the child sexual abuse material online, as fast as possible. So.
I think from an India point of view, the key for us is going to be breaking this entire sort of, circle where there is a lot of mistrust and a lot of opacity on all sides. And it's important for us to first get all the stakeholders on the table to really understand where each one stands before we even start looking at a mechanism for future. And as and when we do know that it's going to be a lot of commitment, financial and otherwise, from both the government and the civil society and private sectors. So that is where we're at the moment.
In terms of the mechanism, I think automation is the key, because if we have the automatic a way to put the fingerprint of the material, or with a DNA. I think some hotline may already have it, but if we can identify some material is already determined as the illegal child pornography, we don't need to check every material, and to minimize the operation time to do the more effective turning down. And also in addition to that, I think we still have some challenges from Japan perspective view. Raising the awareness is one thing, and aftercare is another thing. Collaborating with the NGO and women's support clubs, and also one emerging thing is direct communication, and the CSAM exchange happening in the direct communication. We cannot do that something as a hotline, but still the issue is still occurring. So I think as an SIA, we also need to think the countermeasure toward the, like direct communication, like the direct mails and like actual like online grooming, being ending up with like the actual meeting up with like kids and adults.
Very well, thank you. Do you want to?
Well, just briefly, we definitely need to have a common commitment to bring in scientific research, so understanding what's the challenge that's coming next. Bring in technology partners who can help us in these challenges, developing technology that can help us. We have the spread of CSAM on the dark web. We haven't talked about that today. We know about how much it will increase the use on mobile applications, on mobile networks. We have live streams for which we don't have an easy solution. So unless we work with research, we work with technology, and we work being at least one step behind, not 10 steps behind criminal organizations in innovation, we won't be able to face what's coming next. And the key word for this is commitment by everyone. So we have to work towards that, towards bringing on the parties to a common commitment.
And I totally agree on that. This is not an issue that will be less. This is growing. And we have children everywhere, in every country, in every city, being sexually abused and exploited online. So this is a responsibility for all of us together. It's children's responsibilities, it's the parents' responsibility, the government, the industry, the organizations, law enforcement, all together. And we cannot do this on our own.
Thank you very much. We have to wrap up because we've been told we have 0 seconds left. Thank you very much to the speakers and for the quality of the presentation and the comments, and to the audience also for the interesting questions. And I hope it has been an interesting debate for you. And I hope you can enjoy a good coffee or tea now. Thank you very much.
Just a very quick reminder, the next sessions will be start at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
So much.